My name is Liam O'Mara, and I'm a professor of history. Don't let the Irish name fool you. I'm a proud Jew, and because of our history and traditions, I am an equally proud anti-fascist, anti-racist, anti-imperialist, and anti-Zionist. It's honestly sad I need to call myself anti-Zionist, given how much I love the land of Israel and Palestine, how much I want to see it flourish and sustain a vibrant Jewish life on its soil. But Zionism was co opted by a racist settler colony that evolved into a genocidal apartheid regime, busily showing the world how little it learned from our history as Jews. Or perhaps it learned too much of what happened and none of the moral lessons, since what I have seen over the past 76 years is an unending repetition of the horrid crimes we faced: pogroms, ethnic cleansing, rape and torture, concentration camps, racist laws and segregation, vicious propaganda to other the people living on the land, to make them strangers and enemies about which you spread heartless rumors and consider subhuman, unworthy of life. Talmud teaches us that to destroy a life in the land of Israel is to destroy the whole world, while whoso saves a life saves the world. The settlers have perverted this to refer only to people like themselves, ignoring the simple fact that the ancient kingdoms were always culturally, religiously, and ethnically diverse. Palestinians are our brothers, literal descendants of the ancient populations of Judah, Yisrael, and the other Canaanite states. They have been on the land since the Stone Age, and while languages and religions have changed, people have never left the land. My tribe is made up of those who fled persecution and chose a life in exile. Their tribe is made of those who stayed, became Christian, and later Muslim. But we are the same people of the same blood and history, and to watch as my tribe slaughters and dispossesses my brothers fills me with rage. The lessons of history have compelled many of us to devote our lives to solidarity, to social justice. None are free, whilst others live in tyranny, rot in prison, or suffer persecution. Permanent exile has taught us, in painful ways, what it is like to be seen as other, to face discrimination and oppression. It has shaped a tradition of cosmopolitanism, of universal brotherhood, of opposition to the racist discourses underlying colonialism and ethno-nationalism. We Jews were too often denied a seat at the table, denied recognition as equals within our own countries, and in many of us that inspired an indignation that led us to stand up for others, to speak out in defense of indigenous peoples, of African Americans, of Muslims and Sikhs and Buddhists, to march in solidarity with the queer liberation struggles and for the rights of women. I live and work on Serrano and Tongva lands, aware that I am beneficiary to one of the worst genocides in the Americas and committed to learning and teaching the lessons of that. We can do better. We must do better. We must pursue justice for the past and work to prevent new crimes based on the same horrid ideologies. The founders of the State of Israel have taken the opposite lesson, where we say never again to anyone. They say never again to us, and inflict on the Palestinians all the awful crimes to which we were subjected over 2 millennia of Roman and Christian and nationalist persecution. Zionism is a tool of Western capitalism, of British and American imperialism, of white supremacy, of Christian fundamentalist apocalypticism, and of literal fucking fascism. Zionist nationalism is of the regressive and racist 19th century variety, based in violent exclusion and abiding prejudice. My Judaism is its antipode. I believe our safety is not found cowering behind concrete walls and sniper towers, but in solidarity with oppressed peoples. Our history compels me to embrace a rainbow coalition, to unite with others against empire, against neoliberal globalization, against white supremacy, and against settler colonialism. There are hundreds of thousands of Jews like me in the United States. We stood in solidarity with Black Americans against Jim Crow. We spoke out against FDR's concentration camps. We marched in support of native self-determination on their ancestral lands. And we spoke out against the Palestinian catastrophe of 1947 and 1948. Zionists absorbed the generational pain from 2,000 years of Christian persecution and turned it into a weapon directed at an innocent people. Palestinians did not accuse us of killing God. Palestinians did not invent the blood libel and accuse us of ritual murder. Palestinians did not slaughter us on the way to crusade. No, they were also victims of the crusades. The Palestinians did not force us into ghettos and concentration camps, and they did not gas us and burn us. Those are the crimes of Europeans, crimes for which they have still not atoned and still cannot acknowledge as consequences of their culture and beliefs. Countries like Germany and the United States papered over their anti-Semitism and Judeophobia by embracing Israel, by pretending that by arming and funding its expansion, they absolved themselves for centuries of systematic violence. Rather than address their beliefs, they turned to Zionist nationalism and saw in it a continuation of their own racist and imperialist history. Israel is, like the United States, built on the bones of indigenous people, and it must answer for that. The way forward is to reject Zionism, to call for a binational one-state solution that grants true and lasting equality to all in Palestine and Israel. We cannot, as the Zionists attempted, address the injustices of the past with new injustices. We must break the cycle and start over. This requires free discussion and dialogue across all sects and national boundaries. It involves open and patient engagement. It demands a clear-eyed appraisal of the crimes of the past so that justice may be sought. That cannot happen in a world that censors scholars. History will judge those engaged in McCarthyite efforts to silence folks like me, because one of the chief lessons of genocide studies is that these things happen because people let them happen. The powers that be profit on this, and they brook no dissent. Right now, Israel is exporting the techniques and technologies of occupation, helping dictators and demagogues spy, imprison, and torture. This is hugely profitable, and our country is knee-deep in it. If those who know what is happening refuse to speak up out of fear, we allow racists and tyrants to control the narrative. If those who recognize our society's complicity in genocide are not willing to throw our bodies onto the wheels and gears of industry and shut it down, that complicity passes from society to us. Activists and intellectuals have a responsibility to face uncomfortable truths and to force others to face them, whether they wish to or not. We know that all it takes for evil to succeed is for good people to do nothing, and more, that if we who know refuse to act, we ourselves become tools of that self-same evil. I refuse the perpetuation of apartheid and colonialism. I refuse to stand aside during a literal genocide as settlers place bids on freshly stolen land. I refuse to support a racist ethnocracy just because it claims to be Jewish. This is not done in my name. As Jews, we must stand up and shout that this is not done in our name. We have long been victims of persecution and violence and have a responsibility to stand with all who face similar treatment for being who they are. That for so many of us, that doesn't include Palestinians, is criminal. And in my eyes, a repudiation of our own cultural inheritance. Torah tells us to welcome the strangers in our land. Tell me why Jews, Muslims, Christians, and Samaritans cannot live in safety and dignity in the same country. Tell me why Israelis and Palestinians cannot share the same rights and privileges in a democracy. Our safety as Jews depends upon dismantling tools used to silence and murder us, like nationalism, bigotry, racism, and imperialism. It means fighting white supremacy and Christian nationalism. We cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. Israel doesn't make us safer, it places us in danger. By using the tools of oppression, of racism, of imperialism, it fosters hate and anti-Semitism by its own bigoted and violent acts. Our safety can only come about by tearing down the ideologies used against us, and Israel has chosen instead to embrace them. It works in concert with the Christian fundamentalist forces that call for our destruction as a people, and it works with the same white supremacist imperialism that almost wiped us out in Europe. Israel must change. Jews belong on that land, but so do Palestinians. It took international pressure to knock out the South African apartheid regime, and the same is needed here. We in the diaspora must join hands with Palestinians, and we must commit to building a better world together. I am angry, I am hurt, and I am offended by what Zionists do in my name, and I do not accept it. I shout back, not in my name. The enemies of the Jewish people are nationalism, racism, and imperialism, not the Palestinians. We are two peoples united by blood and history, and now by generational trauma, and we must stand together to heal. My name is Liam O'Mara, and I am an anti-racist, an anti-imperialist, an anti-fascist, and an anti-Zionist. I want a world of justice, peace, and dignity for all. This genocide in Palestine is not happening in my name, and I will not allow a racist ethnocracy to speak for me as a Jew.